Because obviously employer branding is key in terms of engaging people. And whether you go with someone like Paul here, for example, at Green Man Gaming, who puts your vision statement on here. I particularly like the bit where he said, you get shit done and spread the word of the belief. And they basically, the bits I particularly like is we drink beer and hug dogs. It's a very English thing to do that. That joke doesn't obviously work very well in Singapore. How you can do this, you have branding at the back. So you're branding the summary, branding the picture section, the profile section. And this guy went red, red, red everywhere, including his own facial features. He went big on red, because obviously he's very passionate about that. Everybody else did the same thing. Every single person's got red in the background. So this is where you really get compliance, when you get employer branding here. Alison went the other way, went red and white, turned all the profiles red and white, for example. And then Matthew went with the orange circle. And every single person did it, apart from Nicole. And Nicole doesn't want to work there anymore. But you obviously market your company through LinkedIn, through your own personal profile, through your leader's profile. That's why the board directors are here, because they have a responsibility to do this. Because ultimately, people think, oh no, put it on the company page, and that does it. No, it doesn't work. And the reason why it doesn't work is this. If you don't believe me, look at the facts and figures on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has 600 million members who presumably have some kind of affiliation, brand association with LinkedIn. Only 4 million of them are actually following LinkedIn on LinkedIn. And bearing in mind, LinkedIn aren't paying for marketing and advertising to get people to follow their company page, and even they can't get anyone to follow their company page. Literally, that's less than 1%. Whereas Jeff Weiner, for example, who's the CEO of LinkedIn, actually has 9 million followers. Twice as many people follow Jeff Weiner as follows LinkedIn, because people feel affinity and empathy with leaders, not the company. But he promotes the company through his personal brand, through his following, for example. Same with Microsoft. Microsoft has 6 million followers. Bill Gates has 18 million followers. Again, Microsoft own LinkedIn, and even they can't get people to follow Microsoft on LinkedIn. 1%. Whereas Bill Gates, he talks about passion, talks about purpose, he talks about compassion, he talks about different things he's doing. It's much more interesting than following Microsoft, but he still promotes Microsoft through his profile. The best example is actually Richard Branson, who actually has a wider diversity in terms of 18 million followers, and then Virgin Atlantic has like 100,000 followers. But he promotes the entire Virgin brand through his profile. Even someone like Rico de Blanc, for example, in Hong Kong, he's promoting his hotels. He talks about things like happy employees, happy guests. He talks about what Apple learned from the Ritz-Carlton. Or Arnie Sorensen, for example, who does a very good job in promoting Marriott Starwood. Now he's got a massive challenge there in terms of employer branding, in terms of stakeholder engagement, and being in a big American company. And he talks about things like moving with purpose on passion on Global Running Day. So he's basically empathizing with his employees, getting engagement. Or this one here, for example, he picked an immigrant, Ismata, about an example of a great customer service. Because he wanted to basically say he was not like Trump. He wanted to attract employees by saying we welcome immigrants to actually do our customer service. He said Ismata was the best customer service person he had. And that's very brave for a CEO of the largest hotel group in America. But the Marriott page, for example, has twice as many followers, but 10 times less engagement. And that's the point. The engagement levels on the people's page, the leaders page, is much more than on the company page. And Branson, as I mentioned, is the best example. He promotes posts about entrepreneurship, about fun, about culture, about passion. But Virgin Atlantic have 120,000 followers, and more to the point, their engagement levels are pathetic. No one basically engaged with Virgin Atlantic, they engage with Branson. Thousands and thousands of people actually do engage with him. So it's through the leaders you actually promote Scape. It's through you promote Scape, not through the company page. So don't think the company page is going to market Scape. It's going to be through you. Because ultimately it's not what you know, it's who you know. It is very much about connecting and networking and network on LinkedIn. And it used to be you had 6 degrees of separation in the Kevin Bacon days of he knew everyone in Hollywood. Now it's 3 degrees of separation through LinkedIn. So for example, I have 10,000 connections on LinkedIn in Singapore. And that means I can reach 250,000 people who are my second connections on LinkedIn, and 1.4 million in my third connections, which means I can reach about 1.7 million of the 2.3 million people who live in Singapore by having 10,000 first connections. So it's all about having the right kind of first connections, which leads you to the second and third connections, because I do the same trick elsewhere. So for example, if I went to Hong Kong, I can reach 1.4 with 1.8 million people there. In Sydney, 1.9 million. In Shanghai, 1.7 million. In APAC, I can reach 150 million people just by having the right kind of first connections. And then in Germany, for example, I can reach 8 million. In places like London, 3 million. And even in Europe, for example, I can reach 124 million. And that's about having the right kind of first connections. So it's all about kind of using your connections, your first, second, your third, because ultimately people buy people. Nothing really demonstrates that more than someone like Elon Musk. Because if you or I had come up with half the things he came up with, we wouldn't have got away with it. We wouldn't have raised funding because he has a personal brand. He has credibility. Now, whether you love him or you hate him, he basically raises money for these 3 different brands, for example, and markets them through his personal branding. So it's all about his personal brand, how he raises engagement levels. And ultimately, there are 12 different ways of engaging on LinkedIn. Communicating, which helps you achieve sales or event sales, or get sponsors, or get engagement, or go to the market, the co-working space here, for example. So you can achieve all these goals through things like social selling on LinkedIn. You can look at who viewed your profile. So if you engage in your SEO, your profile, you can get people to come to you, just like you get people to come to your website. And then because of the data on LinkedIn, you can actually reach them and then start selling them all your portfolio of products and services. You can send out invitations for them with a script. Never, never, ever send out just a spam to people. Actually say why you want to be engaged and why you want to be connected to them. And then you can basically use Sales Navigator, which is the best way of finding the data on LinkedIn to find people, whether it's for your co-working space, or whether it's for your events, or whether it's for your sponsorship. And I can feed people on LinkedIn, and basically this is what it shows. So I can find, say, 2,000 people who are founders of companies 1 to 10. I can see how many of them actually post on LinkedIn. That's important, because if they're posting on LinkedIn, they're engaged. You're actually active with the platform. Otherwise, they might be just registered on the platform. So you've got to look at who's actually active on LinkedIn. And then you've got to look at maybe who changed jobs, for example. You've got to look at people who are open profile or premium, because they're actually engaged with the platform. They're paying money for the platform. So it works phenomenally well. You can also share, save leads, for example, and then follow up with those people by liking and sharing, engaging. Don't forget, anyone who does that and you like, they get notifications saying you have liked their post. So you're doing social selling for people on LinkedIn. And then you can target people who are open profile. So for example, if you wanted to target the 2nd richest man in Singapore, Eduardo Saverin, co-founder of Facebook, who's obviously is worth apparently $10 billion, you can actually market him for free because he is an open profile. So don't do it all the same time, but you can actually send Eduardo a message for free. Say, Chris says, I've got a great idea for an app and you might invest. But you can't with Darius, who I noticed had been at one of your events recently, for example. So if you want to contact Darius, even though he said, drop me a line, you actually can't drop him a line because he hasn't ticked the box where it says his open profile. Whereas Eduardo has. You can drop Eduardo a line, but to actually get to Darius, you have to send an in-mail. Now, if you don't have a premium account, you can't send an in-mail. You can connect, but if you connect more than once, you can't connect. So basically, you can't connect with Darius, unless you happen to know him personally, which defeats the object of LinkedIn. Whereas basically Eduardo, you can. So that's a lesson in basically if you're a Sales Navigator, or if you're on premium, and you want people to contact you, be open profile. It's just a matter of ticking the box on LinkedIn. It doesn't cost you any more to do that. So in summary, your reputation is very important, just like Gladiator was, Maximus. If anyone's seen the film, it's all about how the emperor couldn't kill him without actually killing his reputation. So he had to besmirch his reputation to try and take control, and obviously he failed. But I had the same thing. 6, 7 years ago, I posted something about taxi drivers in Singapore, and I got fired on the front page of this lovely paper called The New Paper. And then I had to rebuild my reputation and get on the front page of the Business Times 6 years later, almost to the day, about building a company that's based on LinkedIn. And that's how we ended up getting 900 recommendations. Basically build that profile, learn the lesson, and actually build it back up again. And that's why you can all do this, and obviously a lot of the time it is about time. But if you do it just a bit of the day, you maybe give a bit of Facebook up, give a bit of Instagram up, give a bit of YouTube up, and do a bit of LinkedIn, you will achieve great objectives. And if you don't want to do that, you can always employ a company called Black Marketing and my diverse team based in the district in Republic Plaza. And if you like the talk, please do recommend it. Thank you very much for listening. Has anyone got any questions?